Welcome back, witches. Long time no see. Yes, I was gone for the entire month of February because that is just who I am as a person. Updates about that are over on Patreon because it's too much to get into over here. I talked about it for like 20 minutes over there about mental health and all things February. So today we're doing January book reviews and money recap. I think that's what I'm going to talk about because I do want to keep up with that and talk about my goals as the year progresses. And I don't want to miss the first month, even though it is already the last day of February. February updates will be for next week. Today, though, I'm going to try to run through the books of January and money updates because January was actually a good month. It was February that was difficult. So I think we'll go back to January, go through all of that, and then next week I will bring you February books, which will be a much shorter video. And during that one, I am also going to chat a little bit about, maybe you see the box here behind me, Magical Butterfly Spirit. We are going to discuss that and unboxing that because I got some new fun things. So here in my always fully booked planner, I will have this linked below from Little Inklings Designs. And I am first going to go over the money side of things because that is a much shorter recap because like I said, January was a pretty good month for that. It is February. That was a disaster. So for the overall money goals, I am still doing like no spend, not spending on witchcraft supplies, not spending on books, just trying to keep the grocery costs down, everything in that realm, just trying to watch spending. And January was a good month for that because we had a large stockpile of things going into January that were like left over from December. So things that I did buy, Costco was the first one, and it was eggs. And I feel like this will probably make people cry now, like knowing what prices are now, even like this, we're 2 months later. So this was January 3rd, and I spent $33.36 on 10 dozen eggs. So I don't know what that is a dozen, but it's less than $4, like $3 something, $3.20, $3.50. I'm really bad at math. But somewhere in there. So I have not been to Costco. I'm planning on going sometime in the next 2 weeks and seeing what egg prices are then. So that'll be wild. And then as far as other groceries, I am tracking separately what I am buying this year, what I am buying for myself versus what I am buying for like my husband, the dog, household, any like party supplies, hosting, anything like that, because I just want to keep track this year of exactly what I am spending on food. And other than like eggs, I eat pretty differently than my husband does. So groceries don't really overlap that much. So as far as groceries for him, I spent, let's see, one trip was $60.03 and another one was $88.57. So I don't think that was that bad. Other things I paid for were health related. So I do book like all of my doctor's appointments for the year pretty early in the year, try to knock those all out. I had a copay for $30 and the eye doctor exam and copay for $148. And then I needed to order contacts for $77.01. And I also spent $39.73 on gas, and pet food was 2 orders of pet food. $29.22 and $59.91. So that's everything that I did in January. All of the spending, everything, tracked everything. So it was a very low-key month as far as spending and like going out because we didn't go out. There was nothing going on. So that makes it pretty easy. So overall, January, big success. Now getting into books, the main portion of this video. And like I said, January was pretty good. I read 21 books, and that does not include the witchcraft books, which I am going to track separately this year because I think like the normal fiction reading that I do is a little bit different than the witchcraft like nonfiction books. So I am going to mention those quickly because you have heard from the authors on the podcast already or coming up. So How to Read and Interpret a Birth Chart by Lori Farrington, that you have already heard from. A lot of you loved that episode because you're all birth chart nuts like I am. Crystals for Psychic Self-Defense by Nicholas Pearson, I think is coming up. It might be within the next two episodes. So stay tuned for that. And then I also read Happy Witch by Mandy M. And Mandy, you heard from towards the end of last year. We talked about another one of her books, and Happy Witch was one of the earlier ones that I hadn't read. So I recommend all three of those, and all three of those authors are really great. So popping back over to the fiction books, obviously I'm not going to run through all of them because 21 is a lot of books to chat about, but I do want to do the highlights and lowlights. So I had 21 books that I read. Average rating of 3.2, 9,435 pages read, 2 books in print, 18 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. I am also tracking DNFs this year. So for future videos, let me know how you would like this to go. Do you look for like the highlights first, lowlights at the end? Do you want to hear about the bad stuff in the beginning and then hear my best books at the end? Let me know what is the preferred method, or if you just want to hear them in the order that I read them. I am going to start with DNFs, pop back over to best books, and then go to the worst book that I actually finished. So DNFs. So the first one, actually not so bad. It's called Shot in the Dark, and it is like Supernatural meets Ferngully, which was just like really weird. I just couldn't get into it. I didn't think it was super terrible or anything, but it was weirdly like a romance between like human and like a 6-inch fairy. I don't know. So I just could not get into that. But yeah, it is Supernatural meets Ferngully. So if that sounds like it's up your alley, go for it. But it was not for me. The one that I hated, I did not make it very far into this because it was terrible, is Binding 13. Book Talk way to let me down on that one. Like, why does everybody love this? Like, that is crazy to me. If I have to read about how tiny Shannon like the river is again one more freaking time, I'm going to lose my damn mind. And that was only in the first 30 pages of this book. So I have absolutely no idea how this has such high ratings because it's terrible and repetitive, and I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. That's gonna go on my worst books of the year if I count DNFs. But seriously, people love that one. They love the whole series, like Boys of Tommen series or something like that, and I can't stand it. And please, if you are one of them that loves that, let me know why, explain it to me, because I thought that book was absolutely terrible. But yes, I DNF, so I didn't even rate it on Goodreads or anything because I don't think it's fair if I didn't finish it, but I could not. 30 pages was it. I was like, nope. So I changed my mind. Let's get into ones that were just mid, and I'm just going to run through them quickly, and then I'll do favorite, and then I'll do least favorite. So I started the year with the Renegades series. So that starts with Renegades, and then Arch Enemies is number 2, and Supernova is number 3 in that series, and I gave them 4, 3, and 4 stars respectively. It is by Marissa Meyer, so you might know the Cinder from the Lunar Chronicles series. Reads very much like that, or like Marie Lu. Very similar vibes, both of those. So I liked them. I had a good time. It's like a superhero versus supervillain, but everybody's morally gray. Like the heroes aren't really that great. Like a lot of them are pretty terrible. And then we follow one of our main characters is a super villain, and she has her reasons why. We start out following her story, and we're with her. Yeah, no, I get it. Absolutely, villain origin story, perfect. So I thought that those were all really easy to read. Of course, the second book drags a little bit. That happens in 3-book series. But overall, I liked it, recommend it. It is YA, good read. I read The Silver Sorceress and The Shadow King by Alec Hudson. I gave those 3 and 4. Again, it's that second book thing. I read the first one in that series. The series is called The Raveling, and it is on Kindle Unlimited. And I did like the first one, obviously, enough to get to the next 2. So definitely enjoyed those. I read a bunch of short stories, so that is why my book count is high and page count doesn't really match that. Just got into a mood of reading a bunch of short stories, so I read 11 Numbers, which was Cold War Russia style, following this mathematician. So it's math and political, and he's got to get over into Russia to speak with somebody there, and he's the only one that's going to make it because he is a mathematical whiz chess player, and so he's going to be able to get into Russia when nobody else from the US is allowed. So I think to pack that much story into, how many was it, 50 pages is crazy to have that much emotion. And it was just funny. There were a lot of lines that actually made me laugh, so I thought that one was pretty good. I gave that 4 stars. I also gave 4 stars to 6 Deaths of the Saint. And that is by Alex E. Harrow, and I am not usually an Alex E. Harrow fan, just don't jive with the writing style, but this one was really good, very interesting. It is second person, which is crazy that that works, but it totally does. I would call it, if you watched or read Game of Thrones series, it is Brienne of Tarth fan fiction. That's what this is. So, but it's great. And again, like how much you can pack like that much story and emotion into 30 pages, crazy. I gave 2 stars, however, to Cruel Winter with You by Allie Hazelwood. That was terrible and ridiculous. That is a romance short story, but like honestly, you just change the tone of voice a little bit and could easily be horror. Like I don't understand the male love interest. Like he's a stalker. This is not love. This is creepy. Let's run through some other ones that I'm not even going to cover. I'm just going to give you my star ratings. The Ever King and the Ever Queen, also on Kindle Unlimited, 4 stars to both of those. I thought those were, you know, really good, standard for the genre. I know that like they're in that fanro category, fantasy romance, and have been talked about a lot. Did enjoy those. Bloodguard, I gave a 3. That was just mid because you would think that there's just like more going on with a story that's about essentially gladiators. They don't call it like ancient Rome or anything because there is, you know, magic and things. There are magical beings, so it's like fantasy ancient Rome, but it is like a gladiator story. And there's a good amount of like violence and gore in that, but you would just think that like more is happening. It's such a good background for a story, so I don't know why I was like bored. And I did give that one a 3. I'm trying not to give out 3s this year. One of my goals is to be more decisive. So if something is leaning upwards, I'm giving it a 4 or 5, and if it's leaning lower, I am giving out 2s and 1s. I do not care. So even though my average rating is definitely going to end on a 3, I can already tell, my actual ratings are going to be a lot of 2s and 4s this year. But that one was a truly mid book, so I did give that a 3. Also mid, I gave a 3 to The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I know that this one is super popular, so I finally gave in and read it. And as far as, you know, thrillers go, I do see why people enjoy this, and it is a good introduction to the genre. So if you're interested in starting mystery thrillers, like that's probably, you know, a good one to start with. I think that's why people enjoy it so much. If you regularly read it, it is utterly predictable. And this is not a spoiler because it says this in the description, but our main character, Millie, that we're following is fresh out of prison. Like she went to prison at 18 and we're following her 10 years later. So she's been in prison for 10 years. Not a spoiler at all. Why does she have no survival instincts? How do you spend 10 years in prison and you have no freaking common sense? Like I do not understand at all. I also gave mid 3 ratings to Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I love the plot and world and trials that are in here. I want it without the romance because the romance in this just didn't make sense and it was not good. I thought the OCD rep for our female main character was good, but the characters themselves are just really weak. I just do not understand either of them at all, so not a fan. But the world and trials was very cool, so I would like that with different characters. And maybe an unpopular opinion, but I gave a mid 3-star rating to Onyx Storm. I know that people have a lot of feelings about this one, but for me, it really was mid, and I'm sad because I really loved Fourth Ring, Iron Flame, meh. But this one was just, again, a whole lot of nothing happening, which is unfortunate because I do think it's a good story and I think that it's good characters. I like the dragons, I like the world, but it is going to be a 5-book series and this plot line has no business being 5 books. Like we could have been 3 and it would have been fine. There's just not enough story here to drag it out into 5 books, and that's purely a like marketing financial decision to drag this into 5 books. It makes no sense. Like a good chunk of this book is flying on the dragons and griffins to different islands and in search of our main character's dragons, like family and like what sort of breed she comes from. And I can see like where maybe in the future books it's going to be important to know about like those different types of islands and the people that live there and the different types of magic that they have. But the way they went about this is just like pages and pages of like going through this. Could have been the definition of could have been an email. There was no reason to actually go to all of these different places. Could have just summed that up in so many less pages. Like that was just out of control. and it is truly repetitive and like no variety in the writing. So if you want a summary of the smut or lack thereof, definitely check out Reads with Rachel. I'm going to post a link to her video below because she definitely sums up my feelings on that. Like I was just reading the same thing over and over again for however many pages that was. No. On to some 2 stars that deserve a 2-star rating, and I have things to say about. So first up is City of Gods and Monsters, and I feel like that's going to be an unpopular opinion, by Kayla Edwards. And I'm actually pretty sad about this one because, well, first of all, it is 762 pages. So to get through 762 pages and only give it a 2-star angers me. It is absolutely Sarah J. Maas' Crescent City, for sure. Everybody says that, and they're correct. Definitely a knockoff. So if you like the urban and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a Sarah J. Maas knockoff, and I like the urban fantasy, so that works for me. I was here for it. The female main character makes me insane because she's so helpless, and she is a human in this world of like various different, as it says, gods and monsters. There's all kinds. We've got vampires, we've got werewolves, we've got demon hunters, all sorts of things. And she's a human in this world. And she, whatever, I made that comment about Millie too in the Housemaid, and she has no survival instincts. You have lived in this world for years. I think they're supposed to be, she's like mid-20s. You have lived in this world your entire life. How do you have absolutely no survival instincts whatsoever? Like it's just so weak to be like so weak and helpless. Like, you know, you need to have figured it out by now. It's just annoying when she is that helpless. And I think that's why I do like Sarah J. Maas and I do like her female main characters, because they're not helpless. And I actually was going to rate it high. I was kind of like overlooking that, and I was like, no, I actually really like this. I'm like speeding through it. I like the world. Like I'm having fun with it. And I was going to rate it much higher, but then we got to one of my most hated plot points, things that it's something that will make me automatically 1-star a book. And so therefore it like got bumped up to 2 because I was loving it up until that point, and they do kind of like correct it. So this is a mini spoiler. So skip ahead about 2 minutes if you don't want to hear the mini spoiler. It has nothing to do with like the actual plot, don't worry. But our female main character has a dog that she adopted, loves her. They get into a fight with the bad guys in an alley, and the dog jumps in to protect her, and the dog dies. If you kill a beloved pet, dogs bother me most of all, but any of them in a book, I'm going to instantly 1-star it. And there are a lot of books that I've talked about on this channel that is why I hate it so much. So that was like automatic 1-star. They do course correct this in bringing it back in a way. They make it into her familiar. So a lot of the characters have like a shadow familiar. It's like a shadow form that can help them in like the physical world and will never die until they do. So they are able to bring the dog back. It's just like a shadow form, and it's a familiar attached to her and will never leave her again. So they like try to like make it better. So I do appreciate that the dog comes back, but if you are going to kill an animal in your book, especially one that's like a beloved pet, like in Game of Thrones, I kind of like ignore the like horses and things, and the dire wolves are tough, but they are very on screen in the show, but in the books when they die it's like off page. So I can deal with that like a little bit better. But if you are going to kill a beloved pet like that, especially when they are like coming to the defense of the owner, I can't stand it. It's my most hated thing. I will look up spoilers for movies and TV shows if I like am starting to watch it and I see there's a dog in it. I'm like, does the dog live? Is the dog okay? I will look that up online, and obviously people agree with me because there are websites that cover those things. So you don't have to watch it if the animal dies. And that's me, and I hate that. So it got 2 stars, and I will not be continuing in that series. I had a lot to say about that. I was really mad. Another one I gave it 2 stars to that I don't think is necessarily representative of the book, but more my feelings, is Thief of Silver and Souls by Ava Chase. And this is a why choose, and that could be great for somebody else, and it's just not my thing, I have learned. So this is like marketed as a beginner why choose. So if you don't know if you like the genre, if you've never read it before in terms of your romances, this is probably a good place to start because it's very, very light on that and on the smut, and it's more about the world building. So it's like dip your toes in to see if you would like it, and I don't. I do think that this book series is interesting magic and interesting plot. So if you do like that and you do like Why Choose, I think that this could be a good series for you. It just did not work for me because I think as much as I love plot-driven books, if you are going to have love interests, like I need to know a little bit about them. And when you have 5 male love interests, you can't. They all blend into the same thing. Like they're all the same character, and you just don't know anything about them. And there's not time to have any sort of character or relationship development. It is smut for smut's sake, which I know people love. My 2 best friends are huge smut readers. That's like all that they want in their books, and I love that for them. It's not for me. Another one that I think I might be in the minority in is Empire of Flame and Thorns by Marianne Blackwood, also 2 stars. I like the trials in this, a couple of the scenes, enough to keep this from being a 1 star. But this, like I just said, I prefer plot over character development. This is pushing my boundaries on that stance, because this is fantasy. And if you're going to have fae and dragon shifters, you have to explain the world. There has to be some form of world building here to at least a little bit make things make sense, and that does not happen here at all. So that was frustrating. There's so many unanswered questions, and I don't want to continue in the series. It like annoyed me way too much. And the female main character, again, is super weak. Almost done, I swear. This is why I'm not going through and like describing the plot of each one, because we would be here forever, and I know that you know how to go to Goodreads and read a plot summary. So The Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, also 2 stars. This was such a great start. It literally, this is not a spoiler or anything either, because this happens in the prologue. It's not even in chapter 1. But the prologue starts with, we have a slave who turns around and very bloodily, gorily, kills her master. Like, that's a great start to a book. I'm like, okay, I'm in this. And then it's 60% of nothing. Like, it took forever to get to a point. Again, this is lacking in world building, so I don't totally understand it. There are lots of plot holes in this. And it picks up at the end, so I don't know about the rest of the series. I will not be continuing in it. So like maybe like people are like remembering the end and giving it good reviews, or like they have good nostalgia from like reading the rest of the books. The series continues well, so they give this one high reviews because it does have good reviews on Goodreads, but I am not one of them. And I do think I am not the right person to be judging how the author handles like the slavery and what they call fragmented skin in this, but it comes across as weird to me. So somebody else will have to cover that. But the fragmented skin thing bugged me, because that's a term that they use. And what the author is describing is the skin condition vitiligo. And that is where you have like a darker pigment skin, and your body basically, I think, is attacking your skin pigment. It's like an autoimmune disease. And so it will leach the pigment from your skin, so you have like the white patches. I have mentioned before, my dad is Indian, his family is from India, and it's very common, runs in his family, of like having those skin patches. So you have like this against, like white patches against what is normally, like, brown Indian skin. So it's very, very common. And obviously an autoimmune condition, not like a bad thing at all. And they do make it a bad thing in this, because our main character is fragmented. So she has magic, but it's not as pure as the magic of the people who have all white skin. And that came across as like, just the way it was handled, I didn't love it. And that stuff usually does not occur to me. So I don't usually pick up on those things in books, because like a lot of times I just read for vibes, and then I will watch some other creator talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, they were kind of racist in that, and like it totally glossed over my mind. So I don't always pick up on that. So the fact that I picked up on that, I'm like, oh, that bugs me. So I don't know if you have read that one, Daughter of No Worlds. Let me know if you had those same feelings. Maybe it's just me. So I have 3 more books to talk about. I have 2 5 stars and my 1 star. So I am already talking about the books that I don't like. So let's just continue it. I gave a 1 star to Beneath Black Sails by Claire Sager. And compared to some of the ones that I just talked about, I'm like, maybe this isn't even that bad, but no, pirates have no business being this boring. This no. Wanted to give Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, and I was bored from page 1. I don't know why I finished it. Like, I think I was just like in that mood where I was being stubborn, but the main characters are both absolutely ridiculous. The only plot is miscommunication, which is probably my most hated thing to come up, well, other than what I talked about that happened in City of Gods and Monsters. I'm not gonna mention it again in case you skipped over that spoiler. Miscommunication is the worst. Like, it's not a good plot device. Like, I don't like it at all. There's so little pirating. I'm like, your pirates do some pirating. There's no pirating. And it's not YA. It's not marketed as YA. There are smut scenes, so it can't be YA. And the writing is so simple that I was like, who is this? Who is the audience for this? Like everything about it was just terrible. I was so mad. And I think that was like maybe not the worst book compared to some of the other ones that I gave 2 stars, but for like how angry it made me, that's why it gets a 1 star. Way too boring for pirates. That's crazy. I was so mad. And then I had 2 5 stars, 2 favorites. First one, this is another one where I'm rating on vibes and how much enjoyment I got out of it. And like one of those where if I was being nitpicky and thinking about it just from like a review standpoint, like, no, this is not going to be a 5 star, but just for like how much I enjoyed it and how much like that's my goal this year is to be more decisive and not give everything 3 and 4 stars. So 5 stars I am giving to The Favorites by Helene Fargo. And I am not sorry about that. So first of all, I had to check like 5 times as I started this to make sure that it wasn't Taylor Jenkins Reid writing this, because it reads exactly like a Taylor Jenkins Reid. So if you have read Carrie Soto is back, or Daisy Jones and the Six, this is the exact same book. This is Carrie Soto on ice. Okay, instead of tennis, you've got ice skating. This is toxic drama, and I was here for it. Like from beginning to end, it is toxic relationship drama on ice. And I don't know why, but like right book, right time maybe, but I was eating it up. Like I could not put it down. I was like, this is so ridiculous. These characters are awful and I love them. So there's definitely like things that I could pick out that are wrong with it. But like I said, we're rating on vibes, and this was a 5 star for just how much enjoyment I got out of it and how quickly I finished it. I loved it. And I don't usually, like, I want a character to root for, and I don't usually enjoy books where like all the characters are terrible. But like really like all the characters were terrible here, except the gay best friend turned ice skating reporter, giving complete Johnny Weir vibes. Loved him. But everybody else, like, they're like all awful people and have their own like terrible toxic traits. And I'm like, yeah, you all suck, but this is perfect. And I do think that it's very like, if you like the ice skating drama, or you were following like the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan thing, like it reads like all of that. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And then another 5 stars, an absolute favorite of the month, which will, I think, give away what a strange person I am, is Undercover by Tamsin Muir. And again, this is short stories. This is 59 pages. And this is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin meets Fallout, like the TV series on Amazon Prime, if you have been watching that. So this is available on Prime Reading. So if you have like an Amazon Prime account, it is part of the collection of short stories along with Success of the Saint that I mentioned. And this was my favorite, like, horror short story. There's so much like gore and weirdness packed into 59 pages that I loved it from beginning to end. And Tamsin's mind is a terrifying place to be, and I absolutely love her for it. No notes. And again, it's one that I cannot even explain because it's only 59 pages, so it's just going to ruin the story, but you have to. It's great. It's so gross, but yeah, fantastic. So Gideon meets Fallout is like perfectly explains what's going on here. And if you also love Tamsin and are just waiting bated breath for Electo the Ninth to come out, definitely take a little break and read Undercover, because that was my favorite for the month. And for how much I loved it for 59 pages, I don't think anything's going to beat it for favorite book of the year. Like, I think it's going to be number 1 already. I read it in January and I think it's going to be the favorite of 2025. I'm so glad that I read it. Because like I said, not really a short story person, and then I read like a whole bunch and I was like, I actually kind of love short stories. So that was my reading month. I tried to get through those quickly. If you have questions about any of them, because I glossed over them too quickly, then do let me know. Let me know if you have any of like my same hated tropes that come up, because I absolutely am curious if you agree and if we disagree. If I listed any of that like you hated and I loved, or vice versa, I would love to hear about that as well, because I do think that every book has its audience, and obviously some of the ones that I gave like 1 and 2 stars to do have like 3.8 or higher ratings on Goodreads. So there are people out there who love those. And I did that at the end of last year. I did my best and worst books of 2024. And I had lots of you disagreeing with me in the comments, being like, actually, I loved that one. What are like your worst books? One of my favorites. I'm like, I love it. I want every book to have their audience. And I know that regardless, authors do put a lot of work in there. It's just not everyone is going to be your target audience, and they shouldn't be, because I feel like if you're just writing to make everybody love it, or anything that you're doing, if you're trying to please everybody, it's just never going to happen, and you're going to end up with a very mediocre product. So I like books that pull that emotion, either you love it or you hate it. I think it's always an interesting time. So like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I think this video is long enough. Like I said, next video on books for February is going to be a lot shorter, because I can tell you right now, in filming this before you are going to watch it, that if I finish one book today, I'm only going to have read 5 books in February. That's right. 21 in January, 5 in February. February fell off on a lot of things. We will get to that next week and the week after. So that's why next week I will talk about those 5 February books, and we will talk about the box behind me from Magical Butterfly Spirit. And everything I talked about will be linked below. And that is everything that I have for this week. I will see you next week. Really, this time I will.